During the last decade, deer hunter participation in northern Michigan has declined at an alarming rate. During the last 5 years, hunter numbers in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan have fallen by more than 21% when compared to the years 2000 through 2002. The northern Lower Peninsula of Michigan has lost more than 19% of its hunters. But in one small region of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, a fascinating experiment has been underway. In 2001, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources instituted antler restrictions on the harvest of whitetail bucks in 4 deer management units, commonly called DMUs. The restrictions required that to be legal for harvest, an antlered buck must have at least 3 points on one side. As a requirement of the Michigan Natural Resources Commission, after 5 years, surveys were done of landowners and hunters to measure support of the regulations. The survey of DMU 122 concluded that 76% of landowners and 74% of hunters supported continuing the mandatory antler point restrictions. The other 3 DMUs were combined into one survey. There, only 60% of landowners and 52% of hunters supported continuation of the antler point restrictions. Because the Natural Resources Commission requires 66% support of hunters, antler point restrictions were discontinued in these regions. The regulations were left in place in DMU 122. We examined all 4 of these DMUs during the years 2006 to 2011 and compared hunter numbers to the years 2001 to 2005, when antler point restrictions were in place in all 4 DMUs. The results were surprising. Hunter numbers in DMU 122 increased by 24%. At the same time, hunter participation decreased by 8% in DMU 152, by 18% in DMU 252, and by 17% in DMU 155. Moving south into the northwest portion of the Lower Peninsula, another antler point restriction trial has been conducted. In 2003, a 3-point on a side antler point restriction was implemented in Leelanau County, a peninsula that extends north into the waters of Lake Michigan to the west and Grand Traverse Bay to the east. In 2008, a survey was done there in which 72% of landowners and 72% of hunters supported continuing antler point restrictions. By almost every measure and report, these restrictions have been a success in Leelanau County. This county, renowned for the famous sand dunes that make up the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, does not have the type of climate and soils that are ideal for optimal growth of white-tailed deer. It has a northern climate with sometimes harsh winters, and it is in a snow belt with sandy, acidic soils. Yet today, after 9 seasons of antler point restrictions, it produces the highest percentage of 8-point bucks in Michigan by far. In 2011, 63% of the antlered bucks brought into Leelanau County check stations had 8 or more points, compared to an average of only 25% in the rest of the northern Lower Peninsula, and 37% in the agriculturally rich southern part of the peninsula. Yearling buck harvest there went from 65% in the 3 years prior to introduction of antler point restrictions, down to 20% in the last 3 years. Harvest of bucks at least 3.5 years and older went from 13% to more than 50%. Based on these results, in 2012, a sponsoring group of regional sportsmen petitioned the Michigan DNR and Natural Resources Commission to expand those antler point restrictions into 12 nearby counties in the northwest Lower Peninsula, shown here in yellow. Survey results showed that 68.5% of hunters were in favor of implementing antler point restrictions in the northwest 12 counties. We examined hunter participation in all 13 of these counties. In Leelanau County during the last 5 years, hunter numbers have averaged the same as they did in the years prior to implementation of antler point restrictions. In other words, there was 0% growth of hunters. That might seem to be a poor showing, but everything is relative. During the same time frame, hunter numbers went down 8% in Emmett County, down 22% in Charlevoix, down 16% in Antrim, down 32% in Kalkaska, down 20% in Missaukee, down 18% in Osceola, down 30% in Lake, down 21% in Mason, down 28% in Manistee, down 26% in Wexford, down 16% in Grand Traverse, and down 24% in Benzie. Without question, during a period of nearly catastrophic decline in hunter participation, Leelanau County has done a better job of retaining hunters than any other county in the region. Many detractors of antler point restrictions argue that deer management units will lose hunters due to loss of opportunity and frustration because the point restrictions will restrict their opportunities to kill bucks. We know that buck harvest has remained stable in both DMU 122 and in Leelanau County, and yet hunters are harvesting older and bigger bucks than before the antler point restrictions were in place. Not only are these two deer management units the best in their area for harvest of mature bucks, but they have also performed best at retaining hunter participation during times when hunter numbers are plummeting around them. These results lead to the enticing possibility that properly designed antler point restrictions might lead to improved hunter participation.